If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
The heat extinguished. This is Orange and Blue Bloods, a New York Knicks podcast. Myself, Tommy Beer, with you guys. An Odyssey original. Plenty to get to on this episode. We'll be talking about this big win that the Knicks got over the Miami Heat, moving them 4 games ahead of the Heat in the standings. We'll talk about how they got this win. We'll talk about what it means for the standings moving forward. And we'll talk about essentially if we're kind of done with this whole race in the East. You know, is it a situation where the Knicks now are going to be locked into that 5 seed? We'll discuss all that. We'll also talk about one of the most important storylines coming out of that game, which is that Julius Randle had to exit in the first half with an ankle injury. They're calling it a sprain. No word yet other than that he's supposed to be evaluated sometime on Thursday. We're recording this podcast on Thursday, so of course, we get any updates, we will provide that as we record. But Randle sprained ankle, did not return. Knicks still able to get this win. So we'll talk about what a Randle departure or exit will mean for the Knicks for the next coming games if he is unable to play beginning Friday in Cleveland. And speaking of Friday in Cleveland, we will preview Knicks Cavs, a big matchup, potentially a first-round playoff preview between these two teams. So they've played 3 entertaining games earlier this season. This will be the 4th one between these teams. So we'll talk about that as well. My guy Tommy Beer, of course, joined me as well. Tommy, a big win last night, a win that you said was in a game that was the most important game of the season.
Yeah, you know, when we started this podcast, first month of the season, EJ, there was no guarantees that the Knicks would make the play-in tournament.
Not at all.
Let alone the playoffs. But with last night's victory, it certainly looks that way. It's certainly their magic number to clinch a top 6 seed, which is qualifying officially for the playoffs, is just 1 game now. So it looks it's only a matter of time before they lock that up. The 5th seed still a little bit in question. Nets hanging around 2.5 games back, but a remarkable season. And I think the Knicks put a exclamation point on it last night at MSG.
Yeah, it was a great atmosphere at MSG. We'll be talking plenty about that. Again, this is Orange and Blue Bloods, a New York Knicks podcast, Odyssey WFAN original. Of course, you can get these episodes of the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, including the free Odyssey app. Make sure you get the auto download feature on your streaming service so that you can get these episodes every time we drop. We're actually do 2 this week because of some scheduling conflicts, but normally we drop 3 times a week. So make sure you get the auto download feature so that you can get these episodes every time we drop. Also, be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. We're on the WFAN page. We're on the Odyssey Sports page. You can get the full episode of this podcast from a video format or segments from these episodes as well. So make sure you check us out on YouTube as well. You can find us at the WFAN channel and the Odyssey Sports channel. So let's begin with this big win last night at the Garden. So the Knicks got a crucial dub at MSG last night, defeating the Miami Heat. The Knicks survived some frigid shooting, a slew of first half turnovers, and an injury to Julius Randle to take a 2-point lead into the halftime period. The Knicks were then led by an absolute dazzling performance once again by Emmanuel Quickley, who led the team with 24 points. Quentin Grimes also had a big game. He had 23 in this one. He was the main guy responsible for guarding Jimmy Butler. Did an outstanding job keeping him in check. The Knicks took over the game in the 4th quarter on the defensive end, holding Miami to just 16 points in the period. Their defense, in part, sparked a 9-0 run midway through the 4th quarter, capped off by back-to-back breakaway dunks from Grimes and Josh Hart. That ended up kind of putting the Knicks ahead for good. Jalen Brunson, who had been out many games, or at least the last few games, out of the Knicks lineup, he returned in this game, scored 12 points in 30 minutes, but did not close this game. Coach Tom Thibodeau elected to stick with the lineup that was playing well. That lineup included IQ, Grimes, Hart, RJ Barrett, and Isaiah Hartenstein. The group would secure a win for the Knicks, 101-92. Knicks now enter Thursday 4 games ahead of Miami, who have the first play-in spot, the last spot, outside of the playoffs, as they sit as the 7th seed currently. Knicks also secured the tiebreaker over Miami, meaning they won the season series 3-1. So, Tommy, how did the Knicks do it?
Let's start first and foremost with defense. I think that's the story of the game for the Knicks. We know what happened last Wednesday. Miami scores 127 points, shoot 57% from the floor, over 50% from downtown. And last night, Miami scores 92 points, shoots 44% from the floor, 33% from behind the arc. Sometimes it's as simplistic as, yes, this game, was a make or miss league. And the Knicks forced the Heat to miss a lot of shots yesterday. Just played well defensively. And then the other, the other, major takeaway was end of the third quarter, score is 76-76. Randle's already ruled out with that nasty ankle sprain. We'll talk about.
Yep.
Brunson's clearly not 100%. Was a little bit rusty. As he kind of works his way back into game shape. Just hasn't had that consistency. Knicks start the quarter, as you mentioned, with IQ, Grimes, Barrett, Hart, and Hartenstein. I looked it up this morning. Amazingly, those five guys hadn't been on the floor together. Just that 5-man unit hadn't played a second prior to stepping on the floor to start the fourth quarter last night. Those guys remain in the game the entire fourth quarter, outscore the Heat by 11, sparked by a 9-0 run middle of the quarter, multiple, dunks off fast breaks, Ihart, defending the rim, Hartenstein getting in passing lanes.
Yeah.
IQ knocking down big shots, Grimes playing incredibly well for the fourth straight game, really taking his game to the next level. So often we've talked in these post-game pods the day after a victory, Randle stepped up and scored, 37 and
Right.
12, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. Brunson had a 40-piece. And then there's IQ chips in, has a big game here and there. Grimes has a great fourth quarter. Mitchell Robinson blocks 4 shots. Ihart and Hart come off the bench and spark a victory. And that's what this game was about. It was about the team. Leading scores 24 points, low scoring game. They did just enough to get the victory. And in the fourth quarter, it was about guts, determination, talent, effort. And that's what the Knicks had more of than the Heat, sparked by these 5 guys. IQ 25th overall pick, Grimes 25th overall pick, Hart 30th overall pick, Hartenstein 42nd overall pick, I think, in the 17 draft, and RJ Barrett a top pick coming off a terrible first half. He was awful in the first 2 quarters, 0 for 8 from the floor. But yet, as we've seen from him time and time again, he puts it in his rearview mirror. He said he changed the shoes at halftime to kind of change the mojo. Comes out and scores 11 points in the second half. And without Brunson and Randle, they needed that timely offense, and they got it from Barrett. Last point I'll make, just as far as that kind of final quarter, credit to Tibbs for leaving those guys on the floor together. Interestingly, he had Brunson about to check in about midway through that quarter, saw how well the team was playing defensively, saw the progress they were making, yanked Brunson back to the bench. Brunson, of course, being the consummate professional, is the first guy standing, the first guy clapping, said all the things after the game. This is just a really easy team to root for. So many guys that whose effort and production exceed their talent level, as evidenced by the fact that they slipped into the late first or the second round. They cheer for each other, they root for each other. There's a lot to like there, and I thought this game, because it wasn't ugly. It wasn't pretty. Rather, this was a kind of sloppy, sluggish game. The Heat did not play well. They should, this is a terrible season for Miami considering the expectations. But that's a story for another day. As far as the Knicks are concerned, made it a little more sweet to kind of Pat Riley and Butler and Spo and those guys for them to kind of put their foot on their neck of the Heat and kind of prevent them from advancing to that, most likely advancing into the playoffs and having to fight their way out of the play-in tournament, and a little extra. But yeah, great win for the Knicks, great win for the franchise, great win for the fans, and what has been a certainly exciting season.
Absolutely has been an exciting season. And you mentioned it, Tommy, the defense in this one was a difference maker, because I thought in a particularly a first quarter that was so rugged. And so I think that might have been the worst first quarter offensively the Knicks have played. The amount of turnovers, the amount of missed layups, if it wasn't Quentin Grimes, they would have been down. I
Oh
don't
for,
know how many, they
0 for 6 from the free throw line.
free throws. Yes, couldn't make a free throw. I don't know if you even looked it up. I tweeted. I was like, has the team ever started a game 0 for 6 on the free throw line? Like maybe there was a game when Shaq, I guess, got fouled
Right.
maybe, or Will Chamberlain, but 0 for 6 to start. And these were good free throw shooters. It wasn't like Mitch went to the line 6 times. I don't know if he shot a free throw during
IQ
that
mystery.
stretch. Yeah. So so it was a really rough start, but they kind of kept themselves in the game because their defense started the game strong first. But they got out to 8-0 run to begin with, and their defense really held serve for the entire game, and then really kind of closed the show in the fourth quarter. And it's crazy how that closing line that we got happened essentially by accident, because if Randle doesn't get hurt, Obi doesn't play that long stretch of the entire third quarter, and Tibbs now trying to mix and match what he was going to do. I was wondering if Sims may come on cold or how he would work that, but he decided let's just play, I guess the rest of the way with 8 men essentially, and just try to play hard at the 4, which is something that he has talked about. It's something that he had mentioned is something he thought he could maybe do. We had not really seen it much this season yet, but here was a prime example to do that, because the Heat oftentimes play Jimmy Butler at the 4. They play smaller lineup, so this was the perfect team to run this up against. And I gotta be honest, like this is a line that they probably have to look at as something that they can use in the playoffs, because it is probably their best defensive lineup. I mean, when you consider you get Brunson off the floor, Randle's defense can be spotty at times, and it's one of their quickest lineups. Quickly, and Grimes as a backcourt defensively. Now you got RJ, who's playing much better defense. I think he needs to get more credit for the defense he's been playing late. And then, of course, Josh Hart is a dog. And then, in Hartenstein, he was phenomenal in this game. He had 2 steals. He had a block in this one. Again, the stat line won't always suggest kind of his impact, but, I mean, he made some key plays during that 9-0 stretch defensively that helped the Knicks put the Heat away. So that's a line that they got to explore. Like, that's not something that typically say, all right, it happened one game and throw that away. They're going to have to get back to that. And, the play of Emmanuel quickly is continues to just be, a revelation. He really is tracking to be an impact borderline star player in this league. Like, how many games have we seen where the Knicks are playing, quote unquote good competition? And I think the Heat are a talented team that's underachieving, obviously. And quickly they will dominate games. I mean, he's not playing against guys who are, we saw the Rocket game 40 points. Okay, it's the Rockets. Maybe you don't care about that as much. But there have been other games against really good teams where Emmanuel Quickly is out there. He's the best player on the floor. Last night in a game where Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler are playing in the game, Emmanuel Quickly, again, still best player on the floor. A guy they couldn't guard. If he made some free throws, he would have had 30 last night. So another great performance from Emmanuel Quickly. And I do think that Grimes, I hope he doesn't get lost in the shuffle, because I agree Emmanuel Quickly is playing. Because Quentin Grimes, his emergence over this last week or so, because remember, even during that losing streak, he was playing really well. He was like the only guy playing well, really. So his emergence and how he's kind of being able to break through the kind of maybe sophomore wall here, where maybe those minutes kind of got to him and now he's kind of refreshed and he's ready to go. If this is the guy they're going to get from in terms of his production, the Knicks become a very dangerous team, because what you got from Brunson and Randle. Now you have Grimes and IQ playing at this level. You got to be really excited about what Knicks can do in the playoffs potentially.
Emmanuel Quickly, best player on the floor last night. Monday night, Emmanuel Quickly, best player on the floor last night in the Rockets game. But game before, Orlando, Knicks lost, but Emmanuel Quickly was the best player on the floor. On the floor. Last 3 games during that 3-game stretch, 29.7 points per game, 6.7 dimes, 2 steals, 3 made 3-pointers while shooting over 59% from the floor and over 47% from downtown. Those are remarkable numbers. The game, the overtime slugfest marathon game in Boston, where Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were in the game, as we talked about. Ike Emmanuel Quickly, best player on the floor. It's become now what is this guy's ceiling?
Right.
A lot of talk about the Knicks need a 3rd star. I don't think IQ is that, is the type of guy I don't know if he has all NBA ceiling. But at this point, the way he's played over this, this season at large, I think the last 3 games have locked up 6th man of the year. I think it's almost a foregone conclusion at this point, with as well as he's played, as efficient as he's been. the Knicks locking up at least the 6th seed, most likely a 5th seed. All these factors, I'd be shocked if IQ didn't win 6th Man of the Year right now. And if, for a 23-year-old player to win to be the best 6th man in the NBA says quite a lot. Those guys are few and far between. So it really changes kind of the future dynamic. And yes, really good point about Quentin Grimes. 4 straight games now where he's 15 plus points during this 4-game stretch. He's averaging 21 points. And he's also doing the other things that it's not just scoring the ball. He's not a guy that's going to, he's not Duncan Robinson who's going to stand in the corner and make threes. During this 4-game stretch, 21 points, 6 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 1.5 steals, 5 made trays. He has 23 pointers in the last 4 games, shooting 53.6% from the floor, 51.3% from downtown. You can't say enough about, obviously, not only his offensive and not only is he contributing, he's doing so efficiently. His defense last night on Jimmy Butler was a primary reason why the Knicks won the game. The combination of Hart and Grimes putting Butler in clamps, changed the game. Butler had 2 points in the 4th quarter, finishes the game with 12 points. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that he was constantly had either Grimes or Hart, basically for every second he was on the floor, those guys were in his shirt, cut the head off the snake, and the Heat had no chance. Relying on Kevin Love, washed up Kevin Love shooting threes. Gabe Vincent, who plays like Jordan against the Knicks, wasn't enough. Which is crazy. Hero had some moments here and there. Bam didn't do much for the 2nd straight game. So, tons of credit to the Knicks and especially those 2 wings.
Yeah, I think Jimmy Butler is still arguing with the refs, and Josh Hart is still looking for the handshake from Jimmy Butler after the game. He's still standing there at Madison Square Garden right now, wondering, is Jimmy Butler going to shake my hand after this game? I agree. I thought that their defense was the difference, those 2 guys in particular guarding Jimmy Butler. And what a difference just like a week makes. I mean, remember this Knicks team played the Heat last week, and remember how hapless they looked defensively? Like, they just couldn't guard these guys on any level. And now you come into this game, and you saw the defense, again, from the beginning. They kind of set the tone even though they were down. It was like, look, if they just figure it out offensively, they'll win this game. And it was crazy because Julius got hurt, and I still felt like, I think they're still going to win this game because, like, they're guarding so well. And now we know, okay, if somebody gets hurt, Emmanuel quickly could go out there and be a star caliber guy in a game like this. And that's essentially what he did. He picked up his play. You mentioned Quentin Grimes and how he's been playing of late. You mentioned the rebound, too. I think is also a really important thing because I think that's one of the things that I think part of that's because he guards a lot of the best players, so he's not around the ball as much. So a lot of times he's contesting shots, so he's not getting rebounds. But because him and Hart got to kind of switch off a couple of times, like we've now seen the last few games, like he's been able to make an impact on the glass, which is actually one of his best attributes as a shooting guard. Like he came into that draft class as one of the best rebounding guards in the draft. So seeing him attack the glass the way he has, I think maybe watching how Hart attacks the glass kind of shows him, hey, I can go out there and do that as well. He has the same capability. The Knicks are already a strong rebounding team. Anybody that can make an extra effort on that helps. So Quentin Grimes attacking the glass the way he has been important. And you mentioned RJ Barrett as well. He's Mr. Resilient. Like, again, I mean, he missed like 70 layups in the first half. Like, I don't know what was going on. And he was attacking the mismatch that he was getting from Vincent. And for whatever reason, he just could not finish. But he stuck with it, hit some big shots, hit a big 3 in that 4th quarter as well. And that's kind of what you expect from him. He continues to kind of show that he can put things behind him and still, make an impact on the game. So Knicks get a big win here. How confident are you at this point, looking at the standings, that the Knicks are kind of locked into that 5 seed? I mean, I think we both agree that, missing the playoffs seems almost impossible at this point, regardless of if Randle even sits, I think. But like now, Heat now officially kind of in the rearview mirror. And now you have the Nets right behind them. Do you think that the 5 seed is pretty much locked at this point, or do you feel like they still have something to worry about here?
Yeah, I still think they have a little more work to do. As we mentioned, Nets only 2.5 back. And they have a really easy schedule down the stretch. The Knicks don't have aren't certainly playing a murderer's row of games. But they, the Knicks next game, obviously, as we mentioned, is in Cleveland. That's a Cleveland's still fighting for potentially to climb up into the 3 seed. So it's not like they're calling off the dogs anytime soon. Nets have 6 games left on the schedule, 5 of them at home. They play the Hawks, then the Jazz, Timberwolves. Then they're at their one road game is against Detroit, which is by far and away the worst team in the league this season. They close up the season hosting Orlando, and then the Sixers. Who knows if the Sixers will have anything to play for? So is it impossible for the Nets to go 5-1, 4-2 in that stretch? Not impossible. So the Knicks still do have some work to do. You'd like to see them, close it out sooner rather than later. Obviously, we have the issue with Randle now. I'd be surprised if he was cleared to play Friday. We'll talk about that, further in depth in the next segment. But it's still, until it's actually said and done. We've seen the Knicks blow many late fourth quarter leads. This would be blowing a lead of that they don't want to do. And again, Brunson being back is huge. He didn't play well last night, but most importantly, said afterward he felt fine, didn't suffer any setbacks, which is obviously immensely important. They have, Obi Toppin's going to need to step up again. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But yeah, I think, assuming the Knicks can go 3-2 in their final 5 games, even 2-3 should get the job done. But if you lose to Cleveland and then you lose another game, you don't want the Nets to be within a game and a half with a couple games to play.
Yeah, I agree. I think 2 games probably gets it. It's important to note that the Nets had the tiebreaker over the Knicks. They won. They won. Ours a tie.
It's 2-2. It's 2-2. So it would come down to division schedule, and I believe they're both 8 division rather, and I believe they're both 8-8 in the division.
Yeah, Nets are 7-8 right now.
Yeah, I think the Knicks are 8-8 and the Nets are 7-8. So it may again come down to that Philly game. So if they win that game, they'd be tied in the division. Then it'd go further tiebreakers. So that's kind of still up in the air, actually.
Yeah, Knicks have conference record over the Nets, 29-19. But both these teams play teams in the conference, so 2-game lead there. So that's still up to play. So I feel good that the Knicks will get to 5. I don't know if it's a lock per se, but I feel good at this point. I think that, like you said, the Nets will have to play. And to their credit, I think they started to show some life of late. They had to play a little better than they played recently. And maybe, having Ben Simmons essentially away from the team, maybe will also kind of lift their spirits and not have that as a cloud kind of hanging over their head about what's going to happen to close the season in the playoffs. He's been shut down, so he's not now a factor for them. So maybe that actually helps the locker room, helps the team. I think Knicks will get this 5 seed, but they need to definitely find a way to get some of these games here down the stretch.
And just to the Knicks schedule at Cleveland Friday, then they host the Wizards, definitely, obviously a winnable game. Then 2 of their final 3 games are against the Pacers, very winnable games. Although it sounds like Halliburton will be back. But yeah, so at Cleveland, host Washington. Next Wednesday at Indiana, next Friday at New Orleans. New Orleans probably still fighting for a play-in playoff picture, but then they close the season at Indiana. So if nothing else, they should be able to win those 2 Indiana games, maybe throw in the Washington game. There's your 3 wins right there. But again, nothing's taken for granted. We know about the Knicks' slim margin of error, so they need to, they certainly can't, relax completely just yet.
Yep. Tankathon, Knicks had the 19th toughest schedule left with 5 games remaining. Nets had the 24th toughest schedule with 6 games remaining. So that's where things stand right there. Knicks win this one 101-92. So as we mentioned, Julius Randle is set to be evaluated Thursday for what the team is calling a sprained ankle. Randle went down in the second quarter after landing on Bam Adebayo's foot. He was on the Garden floor in obvious pain, had trouble walking under his own power. Shout out to the Garden crowd, I think, for trying to rally around Julius, MVP chance, trying to get him going. Showing the support they had for Julius in that moment. He was able to shoot the free throws that he had to shoot because of the foul, but he immediately limped over into the locker room. He did not return this game. Randle has been an Iron Man for the Knicks pretty much since he's been here. I think COVID is the only thing that's kept him from missing a game with the Knicks over the last 3 years. And here, Randle, has not missed a game this season. And here we are now where Randle might not be able to play because of his ankle injury. So how concerned are you first about the injury to Randle? I mean, we're not doctors, obviously, but given what we saw, did not look good in the moment.
Did not look good at all. And you can say what you want about Randall. You can question some stuff. You cannot question that guy's toughness. As you mentioned, he is an Iron Man. It looked weird seeing him in pain and seeing him kind of limp because you're just so used to him, just a massive, physical specimen. And we've given Randall a ton of credit for how well he's maintained his physique. He came into the season best shape of his career. His strength and durability has allowed him to play, the first 75 plus games. A ton of credit there. So to see him in pain was discouraging. You could see he knew right away that it was serious when he limped off the court. It looked like the cameras kind of followed him into the hallway. It looked like he kind of crumbled in pain once he got into the tunnel. It was just a certainly again, with ankles you don't know it. You could wake up. I'm sure there's some swelling this morning. Basically, we just have to wait until not even what Tibbs says, because I'm sure he'll downplay it. But we'll see if they rule him out. Obviously, you're going to err on the side of caution 2 weeks away from the start of the postseason. So I would be surprised if he played Friday. I'd be surprised if he played in their next contest. Give him a few days, even if he feels well, and see kind of how it responds. But if we're looking at the worst case scenario, high ankle sprains or serious ankle sprains can drag on for weeks and weeks. So it could put the start of the postseason in jeopardy. Those are questions we're going to have to wait until he speaks with the media, until we get reports from the team medical staff, until we kind of get some. First thing you want to hear is the MRIs and the X-rays, etc., that confirm no breaks, no tears, things along those lines. And then it's just probably a pain tolerance and swelling issues and all those things that go into an ankle sprain. We'll see how well Randall bounces back.
Yeah, I don't know if he got an X-ray. I assume he would have got an X-ray at the Garden, and we would have learned if he broke something.
Right.
At least the X-ray showed he broke something. So
Right.
that is probably a good sign that they were able to say sprained ankle.
True.
Now, of course, we don't know about ligaments or things like that because you need an MRI for that. Knicks probably couldn't do that on Thursday night, or which would be on Wednesday night. But yeah, I mean, it was terrible seeing him go down because Randall is a guy who takes nicks and knacks and gets up and kind of just brushes them off. So when you saw him kind of writhing in pain and not able to get up off the Garden floor, it was a little concerning because this is a guy who this is a different foot, but he broke his leg as a rookie with the Lakers, and that was the last time I saw him look like that. Like that was the last time where he couldn't get up and he just looked like he was in obvious pain. So I was immediately took back to that and say, "Oh my God, did he break his ankle?" Because sometimes those things they look like normal sprains, but then you could have a Melo Ball situation where you fracture your ankle and you're done for the season. So as of right now, it sounds like the Knicks may have avoided that absolute catastrophic incident. But yeah, even if it's an ankle sprain, you're talking about a very high grade ankle sprain. That's something that could kind of put you out for a month. And this is not newsflash. It's not the time where Knicks can afford to have one of their best players out for a month as you're heading into the postseason. But yeah, definitely concerning in the moment. I think the way things sit right now, you cannot play him on Thursday or Friday, whenever they play. Like you can't. That's lunacy. He's gonna have to sit at least for a couple of games. And you gotta just try to get him right for the postseason at this point. Like I know it's not ideal to have a guy get hurt this late in the season, but if he's healthy enough to get a tune-up game, prior to the end of the year, get him out there for 20 minutes. But this is not one of those injuries where you can kind of rush him back, especially with an ankle injury, because you may think you're fit, it's 70-80% you can go out there, but that thing swells up and that thing can linger. So hopefully the Knicks take the right precautions here, especially given that they're kind of almost locked in to be a playoff team. What you can't have is going into the playoffs, Randall is compromised and he can't give you what he's supposed to give you.
Totally agree. And I will say, even before the ankle injury, he did not look good.
He had a really rough start to this game.
He had a really rough start to the game, scoreless in the first quarter. I think the first time all season he was 0 for 3 from the floor. Yep. Didn't look engaged, didn't look involved. Basically, since the 57-point explosion, got a technical in that game, got the technical in the following game, got had the massive blow up with IQ in the subsequent game. He has not looked right. I don't want to say looked right mentally because it sounds kind of pejorative and downplaying what could be mental health issues. But
Right.
just he has not looked like himself. I'll say that he's not looked like the same Julius Randle we saw over the first 70 plus, 90% of the season. I don't know if there's something else going on off the court. I don't know if he's dealing with something in his personal life, whatever the case may be. Maybe it's just a slump. Maybe he was dealing with another shoulder injury or finger injury. These guys are constantly dealing with nicks and bruises. Who knows what he was fighting through, but he just did not seem like himself the last week or
Yeah.
so. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. You hope that it's not a significant ankle sprain that just, can require a couple days rest and ice and all that stuff. And maybe that helps him kind of reset his internal clock and kind of recalibrate, do some deep breaths and take some yoga classes, etc. But he has not looked like good for the last 7 to 10 days or so. So maybe this is something that can kind of help him recharge his battery a little bit. I guess if you're looking for a bright side, that could potentially be one.
Yeah, I mean, he's a player that definitely could probably use a reset. I do not want him to have a reset. This be the reason why. I don't want him injured as the reason why he has a reset. But this is a guy that plays every day. Tibbs definitely ain't going to be someone who's going to lighten up on his minutes when he's out there. So he's playing his 37 to 40 minutes a night. He's taking his punishment because he's a physical player. And, we've seen that seasons can take a toll on him emotionally. So he's going to have to sit out here for at least a week, you would think, maybe more. Hopefully it's not too much more than that, but you think at least a week he's going to have to sit out. And maybe this is his ability to kind of focus on something outside of, playing in games. He can focus on rehab, focus on getting his ankle right. And in turn, maybe that can kind of give him the full reset he needs. Because you're right. I think that he entered that game absolutely with not the right mindset. I mean, this is a playoff caliber game. You're playing against a Miami Heat team that he's been torturing for most of the season. So they were going to be keyed in on him, and they were. And he just was kind of, I would describe him as passive. Yeah. Like he really wasn't trying to force the issue in any way. And maybe you say, well, that's a good thing because sometimes he does force it. But it was bad, like, to start that first quarter because the Knicks were so hapless offensively. And it almost reminded me of, it's a very weird analogy, but since the NBA, you probably remember this game. There was a game like in 2002, 2003, I want to say, like the Lakers were playing the Kings, and like there had been this back and forth between Kobe and Shaq about taking shots. And Kobe came into a game. I think he didn't shoot the first half. He might have shot like 4 times the whole game. The Lakers got blown out by the Kings on a national TV game on Sunday afternoon. And it was kind of said that, hey, Kobe wanted to make a point, I guess. Okay, you don't want me to shoot? All right, watch this.
Yep.
It almost looked like that with Randle. I don't know for sure, but that's how disengaged he was to start that game. So you're right. He didn't start off the game that well. But yeah, hopefully this can maybe reset him at least. And of course, hopefully he gets back healthy. That's the most important thing. Hopefully he can get this ankle right. In this meantime, how do the Knicks adjust? I mean, like I mentioned before, I think that lineup we saw with the small ball 4 being Josh Hart is something that they're going to have to play. We know Obi Toppin now is going to have a much bigger role. You would assume he enters the starting lineup, though maybe, I don't know. Maybe Tibbs throws with Hart after what he just saw. What do we think of how the Knicks adjust with Randle out?
Yeah, so I think that Obi has earned the opportunity to be inserted into the starting lineup. He's played. He's been a good soldier for 3+ years now. And Hart is just so excels in that role off the bench. So I don't think you want to mess with the chemistry heading into the playoffs. And to your earlier point, I think we definitely have to. He has to experiment with that 5-man unit that closed out Wednesday's win over Miami. That being said, I think of a lot of it's going to be matchup based. So, for instance, heading into Cleveland, assuming Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are both healthy and suit up, that's not that's probably not the front court
tough
you want
matchup.
To against. Whether you bring in Sims or see how long if Obi can handle 40 minutes without getting terrorized by Evan Mobley, who's having a really good second half of the season, one of the league's rising stars, and then Mitch has also been, he has not looked good in the last few games.
I think he's not 100%. I really think that knee's bothering him.
Agree. He still looks like he's dragging that knee a little bit. Doesn't have that same explosion and just kind of that same. He hasn't impacted the game nearly as much prior to the injury since. So maybe we'll see if maybe limit his minutes a little bit. Don't be afraid to give him some time off this last 2 weeks of the season. So maybe that involves Sims getting some rotation. That being said, if Tibbs is going to stick with the 9 men and obviously Randall's out, I would put McBride in ahead of Sims. Yeah, I just think, we've seen how much McBride helps a team both ends of the floor, especially now that he's knocking down shots of late. So this may be a good opportunity for him to kind of, get in, to make an impact again, have an opportunity again. I think like Obi, he's earned an opportunity to see extended minutes. So again, a lot of it's matchup dependent. If Mitch Rob gets in foul trouble or if Mitch Rob sits out a game, then Sims, then you don't have much of a choice. But if you're game planning, I'd like to see Tibbs game plan for McBride to play at least 12, 15, 18 minutes a night while Randall's sidelined.
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that because I didn't think you would go there, but I totally agree. I really think that McBride should be the guy that gets entered into the rotation and you just run a little smaller for the next however many games you have. What's interesting is the Knicks, if you're talking about getting ready for the playoffs, it's likely going to be this Cleveland team.
Yep.
If it's not Cleveland, it'll be Philly. And if it is 5 second-round match, you'll be looking at Milwaukee most likely. All 3 teams probably not lines that you want to go small. So there's a part of me when I was thinking about this, like, do you get Sims ready? Because there are games where there may be foul trouble he has to play. But I still think that McBride has played so well that I want to keep him fresh, and B, I want to see, okay, like how do we look if we do have to go smaller against some of these teams? And if it doesn't work out, then you say, all right, Sims gonna have to get some time because we can't guard these teams. I think this is gonna be a very interesting test for them. But I agree, McBride was playing so well prior to Brunson returning that I think that he's earned the chance to still get out there, especially given that Hart has shown that he can handle playing the 4.
I will say this: if you're ever going to experiment, Friday's the game because experiment with something you're probably not going to do in the postseason, I should say. Because there's a little bit of gamesmanship's involved. If you think that 5-man unit's going to be a real impactful unit in the playoffs, right, don't give Cleveland a look at it on Friday night. Don't give them a firsthand look and have time to prepare and get a feel for it. If you really think that is something you might roll out in the playoffs, keep it out at night, and then you don't want your first round opponent to get basically get a free practice session against it.
And I really thought this game the Knicks won was extremely important for everyone in the organization, especially at the very least, everyone that coaches and plays for the Knicks, because I think oftentimes because the Knicks have kind of made Julius Randle their kind of the center of their earth and their universe, sometimes they kind of forget that it's a team. I think sometimes the players forget that it's a team. As crazy as that sounds, given how sometimes they kind of just rely on Randle to just kind of just get them out of situations, and seeing them play as a team to beat the Heat that game, I hope it kind of opened everybody's eyes to saying, hey, like, this is a good team. Like, yeah, Randle is extremely important. They cannot win anything if he's not out there. But they have a good team. They have multiple weapons. And if they play as a team, they can win. They don't have to win playing only one way, which is only running everything through Randle and Brunson. We've now seen that IQ can take over games. We've now seen that Grimes can have big games offensively. We've now seen that they can win games on their defense, being a disruptive unit who can cause turnovers, which we saw in the fourth quarter. I'm hoping that everybody saw that and said, okay, we can play any style of play. We don't have to get bogged down into playing a one-on-one isolation kind of game with Randle or a 2-man game solely with Brunson and Randle. And I hope that Randle saw, hey, the weight of the world isn't on me. I think so much of the issues he has is this idea that he feels like everything is on him. And he does have a lot of pressure, but everything isn't on him. He can rely on his teammates. He can play, secondary to some of these guys when they're going. And hopefully he kind of saw that defensive effort and said, hey, these guys are getting after it, and they won a game essentially on their defense. I got to give that same effort as well to help my teammates. I hope everybody who watched that game, we're all upset that Jules got hurt, but I hope everybody who watched that game saw it and said, hey, we can win basketball games more than just hoping Randle plays well and living with the fact that maybe he just won't close out on people or live with the fact that, hey, he's going to take some bad shots and force some things, or he's going to get some turnovers, but we got to live with it. I'm hoping that everybody saw it and said, hey, that's not how we have to play. Not saying that you're not going to have games where you're going to have to rely on him. You will. But this team is a good team. They need to start acting like they are a good team, not a team of two guys.
And I hope the head coach saw it too, and obviously he did.
Exactly.
Because so often this season it's Brunson Randle, the fourth quarter, the last 6 minutes, last 3 minutes of the first half. You need a bucket. They're very predictable. Predictability leads to makes it easy for defenses to lock in against certain actions. That unpredictability that Grimes, if you close out too hard, he's in the lane, dumps it off to Hart for a dunk or Mitch Rob for a dunk. IQ plays, had that beautiful pass trapped in the Coughlin corner.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Jumps in the air, throws an incredible pass to Hartenstein for a dunk. These are the type of things that make the Knicks far less predictable. Josh Hart grabbing the ball, a defensive rebound, running, pushing the ball down the court. You don't pick him up. He's got to lay up, his 2 foot Euro, finishing with his opposite hand, or he'll kick out to a guy. So all these things, we've been calling for it and asking for Tibbs to do it, and maybe seeing it in the flesh, increases the likelihood of it happening. Who knows if Randle's there? He probably, comes back in the fourth. But to your point, maybe there's a little bit of a silver lining there by showing everybody involved, the players, the coaches, the fans, that there are multiple ways to skin a cat here. There are multiple ways to finish this thing. And if Randle doesn't have it one night, leave him on the bench a little bit longer.
Right.
He's not contributing defensively, and his shot isn't falling. Give Obi a couple extra minutes. Give Hart time at the 4. There's other ways that we can figure this out. So I think that was important in that respect.
Yeah, it was important because I think sometimes when there is a rush to defend Randle, there's a attitude of, well, we have to just live with everything that comes with Randle, and sometimes that stuff is negative because we have no other choice, because they cannot play or win in any other way. And it's weird because I feel like the very few times there have been situations where he hasn't played or whatever, the Knicks have shown that they can live without him. But then it kind of gets dismissed as, oh, well, that was 2 games, or, oh, that was the end of the season, or you can't take that. Like, again, it's not a diss to Randle at all. I'm just saying, overall as a team, that this is a team. And I think that I hope that the whole organization understands that and starts treating it like that. I hope the players understand that and start treating it like that, because I thought that was the only silver lining in Randle not being able to return that game, was that they were able to find a way to win without Brunson on the floor. I mean, like, think about that. I mean, Randle goes out, doesn't even return, and they still find a way to win. So it shows that the Knicks have a really solid squad this season. So let's get to a preview of Friday. We could be watching a preview of the Knicks' first round matchup in the playoffs, because they face the Cleveland Cavaliers in Cleveland. Currently, Cavaliers 4th in the Eastern Conference. They are 4 games ahead of New York, who are 5th. So Knicks not catching them probably for that 4th overall seed. The Cleveland had been playing outstanding ball of late. They did have their 8-game win streak snapped by the Atlanta Hawks. That game came down to a 1-possession game on Tuesday. Hawks beating the Cavs. So the Cavs have their win streak snapped, but they've been one of the hottest teams in the NBA. We talked about for the last few weeks how they've had this really easy schedule, and that continues. I think they still have one of the 27th, 28th easiest schedules remaining. Every time these teams have played, they've been really entertaining games. Knicks beat the Cavs in their last matchup on January 24th. Knicks do have the season series lead as of right now. So I ask you this, Tommy, like, how much do you feel like we can take away from the result of this game, knowing that this may end up being a playoff matchup?
Yeah, I don't think too much, to be honest, because like I said, I think both teams recognize that there's a very high likelihood that they're going to face each other in that first round series, which will be the marquee matchup in the Eastern Conference. In terms of series appeal. And listen, you can't write the script. The Knicks don't get Donovan Mitchell. He ends in a New York kid. He ends up going to Cleveland. And it just the other thing about this week is the Knicks' two best players this week in their 2 wins, probably going back 4 games now, have been IQ and Grimes. And those are the 2 guys that were discussed in the potential trade.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this underlying thing all season. Randle would struggle, and Twitter would say, "Well, good thing we didn't trade him for Mitchell." But you don't say that about IQ, who's going to win 6th Man of the Year, and Grimes, who's emerging as a legit NBA caliber, starting caliber 2 guard. At a minimum, it seems like that's his floor right now. So to give up a 6th Man of the Year and a good starting 2-way 3-and-D 2 guard, and draft capital, in addition to RJ Barrett, which is up in the air right now, but whatever it would have taken, at least one of those 2 guys, if not both IQ and Grimes, in addition to Barrett, depending on what the draft capital was, that will all be talked about ad infinitum in the days and the weeks. Because we'll have 5 days in between the end of the regular season, and then you get the play-in tournament, then you get the start of the postseason. So this will be a very hyped series, a lot of attention. Stephen A. Smith screaming about, please don't lose to Donovan Mitchell, and we kid Stephen A., but he'll be speaking for a lot of Knicks fans. It would hurt that much more. So there's a lot of emotions and stuff going. So roundabout way, I don't think each coaching staff recognizing that these 2, it's like when 2 football teams are playing each other in the preseason, like the 3rd game of the preseason, but they're also going to play each other the 4th week of the regular season. You're not going to use your usual personnel. You're going to do, you're not going to run your bread and butter stuff on 3rd and 1, your go-to play. You're going to do it, something off the back of the playbook. Because again, you don't want your opponent to get a feel and a look at, how you plan on taking advantage of them. So for that reason, I wouldn't put too much into it. If the Knicks had lost Wednesday, then the Heat are only a half game back, or a game and a half back, and the Nets are only a half game back. Then it gets a little more complicated. There's a little more pressure to win. But seeing as Randle's out, seeing as the Knicks, collectively, I'm sure took a big deep breath last night, and their fan base as well, took a lot of pressure off this game. The Cavs were just a game and a half behind behind Philadelphia. Philly's the 3 seed, Cleveland the 4 seed. But until they lost Monday to Atlanta, and then the Sixers last night beat the Mavs. It looked like that game came right down to the wire. So now it's 2.5 again, which seems probably unlikely even though Philly has a very tough schedule, certainly not out of the realm of possibility. But again, looking big picture, what is there, 75-80% chance that these 2 teams match up in the first round. So I don't think they'll put all their cards on the table in this matchup Friday night.
Yeah, I think Cleveland, not to say they had to run the table per se, but this last little swing here where Sixers get a tough win, they get a tough loss. I think they were hoping they could beat the Hawks, and then not in Dallas has been kind of up and down, but Dallas is a desperate team, so they kind of hope that Philly would win. That would have made things very interesting if that flips. Now it's a half game because, like you said, Philly has the 2nd toughest schedule left in the NBA season. Cleveland has, like I said, the 28th toughest schedule, so that would have made things interesting. Now 2.5 games, that's a lot to catch up. I don't know what the tiebreaker is like, but you would think that Philly would have you think that Philly would definitely want to get that because they don't want to face Milwaukee in a potential 2nd round matchup. Whereas I think if you're Cleveland, I don't think you really worry about that much. Like, I think home field advantage was the most important thing for them. That is not locked yet, but is almost locked. I think with a win, probably they would get that, I guess, because Cleveland, Knicks have, which maybe that's the only reason why maybe this game doesn't mean something to them, because this is the team that's behind them. So both have 5 games to play. So you do the math there. Knicks behind 4. If they win this game, they clinch that 4 seed in that home court advantage. But I don't think they worry so much about if they play the Knicks or if they play the Nets. I think that's something that they don't. I think they prefer to play the Knicks, but it's not something where they're going to kill themselves to make sure they get that 3 seed. So I agree. I'm not sure how much to take away from this. I also think it's hard to take away a lot from this game as far as a playoff preview because Randle will almost certainly not play. So how the Cavs guard the Knicks in this game, I don't think will look anything like how they'll guard them in a playoff series.
The other thing to note, Jared Allen did not play Tuesday night in the Cavs loss to the Hawks. He's dealing with a strained right groin. I believe he's listed as questionable. I'm not sure if they've submitted their injury report for Friday's game yet. But obviously, this late in the season, a groin injury, I would not be surprised at all if they err on the side of caution, keep him out an extra day. Isaac Okoro also dealing with some knee soreness. He starts for them. Is not really involved offensively, but more of a perimeter defender. He also missed Tuesday's game. Tuesday's lost the Hawks with a knee issue. They're probably going to be without 2/5 of their starting lineup as well. Something else to factor in to not put too much weight into the outcome of Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, if the Knicks are going to find a way to get a win in this one, I think that one of the first guys you got to look at, and the guy we kind of glossed over it, honestly, in the last segment, is Obi Toppin. I mean, he's now going to be a guy who's going to be relied on a bunch, and we know the matchup he'll have playing against a guy like Evan Mobley, who's, you mentioned, one of the NBA's rising stars in this league. Obi Toppin has been misused. Obi Toppin has not been, really relied on the way he should, given his skill set. But this is kind of it. Like, he's gonna have, up to 30 to 35 minutes probably, if he plays well, to go out there and show what he has. And we know that when he's had these opportunities, he's particularly played well. I'll be very fascinated to see how the Knicks incorporate him with this starting lineup. Like, he hasn't really played with these guys very much. Like, Tibbs kind of goes with the hockey style substitutions where the first unit plays only with the first unit and the second unit plays only with the second unit and plus one guy. So 3 guys who are on the bench and then the fourth guy, or the 4 guys who are on the bench and the 5th guy, usually RJ, plays with them. So he hasn't really got a lot of time playing with Jalen Brunson or playing next to Mitchell Robinson that much. So this is going to be very important to see how he responds playing in this moment. This is a team that almost drafted him. Cleveland was so high on him, and they obviously played at Dayton, so there was a lot of pressure to take Obi Toppin in that draft. They went with Isaac Okoro instead. So I'm looking to see Obi Toppin kind of make a statement here. I'm hoping that he kind of shows that, not just to the Knicks, but, kind of to the rest of the league who maybe, asking for his services this offseason. Hey, this is what I can bring to the table, because they're going to need him in this one. Like he said, Evan Mobley's an absolute load to handle, whether it be defensively, whether it be what he brings on the offensive glass, his ability to score on his own. Like he's an all-around player.
Yeah, Mobley's in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. Probably still too young to win it, but don't be surprised if he's in the top 3, top 2, going forward.
He's one of those rare guys that could legitimately guard 5 positions.
Yes. That being said, listen, Obi Toppin fans have called for Obi to get significant minutes for years now, quite literally years, plural. Obviously, this season, it hasn't gone as they would have hoped. Part of that, most of that is due to the fact that Randle, against all odds, has had the best season of his career and is on pace to was an All-Star, should be named to an All-NBA third team. So, we'll see how it plays out. But listen, it's a tough matchup against a great defender and a guy who can kind of punish you down low. So Obi's going to have to play both ends of the floor. But this is if you're a top 8 pick and, you think you're deserving of more minutes, and, whether you view yourself as a starter in New York or for the team that's going to trade for you this offseason, or the team that you're going to sign with as a restricted free agent the following offseason, these are the opportunities to show that you have the goods, that you have what it takes. Last year at the end of the season, obviously the games didn't matter all that much, but he played incredibly well when he got an opportunity to start. That the postseason, his rookie year, he was one of the very few Knicks that didn't look awed by the big stage and actually exceeded his regular season production in that albeit disappointing playoff series against the Hawks. He contributed, I think it was, he had a bunch of games with I think it was 3 games with at least double-digit points off the bench. So he stepped up when he's asked to, and he'll have an opportunity to do so. Again, Knicks have options. They can go hard at 4. They can bring in Sims and play him alongside Hartenstein. We've seen that when Mitch Rob was sidelined at times. We can see RJ at 4. Barrett talked a little bit about it after the game. The NBA's position list. I feel comfortable wherever it is. So Tibbs has options, but Obi should get the first opportunity, should get the first crack at it. He should start. And, we'll see what he brings to the table. Obviously, it'll be fascinating to see if he can step in and step up.
And last thing on this game here, what do you feel about the Knicks' chances against Cleveland in a first-round matchup, kind of coming into this game? Because that's going to be a lot of conversation as well.
Sure. Listen, a lot of it depends on Randle. Hopefully, we
Yeah.
get good news the next couple of days, and he's healthy. He's going to sit out a few games, but should be good to go for the playoffs, etc. And Knicks avoid injuries from here to then. And Mobley, Jared Allen is healthy. His groin issue goes away, and hopefully, both teams are at full strength. That's anybody fan of any team. That's what you're going to hope for.
Yeah.
Assuming that's the case, that it is a great series. Styles make fights. That would shape up as a terrific series. There's a million storylines: the Donovan Mitchell, the IQ, and Barrett and Grimes not getting traded, and Mitchell out in Cleveland, and how does Randall respond after his
Yep.
his second taste of the postseason after a poor first season? Can Brunson rekindle the magic that made him $100 million in the postseason last year? Ironically, playing against the guy that he exploited in Donovan Mitchell on both ends of the floor. Mitchell wants to prove that was not the Donovan Mitchell that you saw, at the end of his time with Utah. A million different, incredible storylines woven together. I think it has all the earmarks of a 7-game series. A close game, second half, game 7. I think the teams are that tightly matched. I think you can make a strong argument of why the Knicks will be able to pull out a victory. Do they have to win in 6? Can they win a game 7 on the road? I think this team is one of the teams capable of doing that, given their road success. But you don't want to play game 7. It's so much can happen. I think you definitely give the Knicks a legit shot. Is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? I'd say it's somewhere in that range. So I expect it to be a tightly contested series, but I give the Knicks it's certainly a decent chance to win. If not, if I probably, as of this morning, as of today, I'd probably pick them to win the series. To be honest, I think they played that well. I think they played that well for the last 3 months. But Cleveland certainly would be a tall order. But it will be fascinating to see, certainly.
Yeah, it'd be a great first round matchup. I mean, I've been saying for a while that I think that this is the team that the Knicks need to get in this first round. They get them that they'll advance. I really think that Cleveland, one of the things that I think hurts Cleveland in the series against the Knicks is their lack of depth. They essentially don't really have a bench. It's Karis LeVert, and that's it. And LeVert's been starting because of the injuries that they had. But Osman, Rubio, Diakite, these are the guys. Isaac Curl's been in and out of the lineup. These are the guys that have been playing minutes for them off the bench, and the Knicks have now seen with IQ and Hart off the bench. I mean, there's a weapons that they have coming off the bench, and I think that really levels the playing field from a potential Donovan Mitchell explosion that may happen in this series. So I think it'd be a great series. I think that I agree. Maybe not much can be taken away from this game, but I think it'll be fun seeing these guys line up, knowing that in about 3 weeks that this is going to be these two teams lining up essentially to, for all the marbles of keeping their season alive. So it should be fun.
Just your point. It's crazy. You think about the Knicks bench. IQ is going to be 6th man of the year. Hartenstein, has he been the best backup center in the NBA this season? You could make a strong case. Right. Both ends of the floor impact is plus minus. Is 10th in the NBA second half of the season post All-Star break. He's actually tied with Giannis, right behind Joel Embiid. Josh Hart, has there been a more impactful trade deadline acquisition? We know about what he brings, and then you get the X factors like Obi. No question. The importance of a bench is a little bit, coaches will say it's a little bit minimized in the postseason. Multiple days off in between games. The pace of the game tends to be slowed down, but it'll be on Tibbs and the Knicks coaching staff to ramp up that pace and take advantage of the depth. So that'll be part of the X's and O's strategy that gets thrown in.
Should be a good one. Knicks Cavs Friday. I don't know if they call it the Q anymore. I don't know what they call that arena. I never know these arenas anymore because they change names.
The house that LeBron built. That's what they should do.
Exactly. In Cleveland. Should be a good start. 7:30 start there. That's going to do it, though, for this episode of Orange and Blue Bloods. Thank you guys so much for checking this out. Tommy, let the people know where they can find you.
At Tommy Beer on Twitter, and be sure to subscribe to the What's on Tap newsletter.
You can find me on Twitter, EJ_Stewart, Instagram, Action EJ, TikTok, Action EJ as well. Thank you guys so much for checking out this episode of Orange and Blue Bloods. Again, this is a podcast you can get wherever you get your podcasts, including the free Odyssey app. Make sure you get the auto download feature on your streaming service so that you can get these episodes every time we drop. This will be the last episode this week, but we'll be back next week with 3 more episodes. So make sure you hit that auto download feature on your streaming service. Also, check us out on YouTube. Check us out on the WFAN page. Check us out on the Odyssey Sports page. We're dropping the full episode and segments from the episode on both of those channels. So check us out there. That'll do it for now. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. For Tommy, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.